Hello everyone, welcome to today's video where we are going to discuss my third round game in the Chennai Open being held from 2nd to 9th of January in Chennai, India. So I didn't recap the first two games because they were not streamed on DGT board and I didn't want to give out my preparation, but since it was a DGT board anyways it doesn't matter now. So I started off with d4, but the game was started at 4 p.m. and I was kind of pretty confused whether to start with e4 or d4 because the pairings were given very late, and I was preparing e4 till 4 p.m. and then I started preparing d4. But anyways, I arrived around 20 minutes late to the board, and I then came to know that the walkover time is 15 minutes, and I was lucky that my opponent didn't claim a walkover and I got to play the game. So d4, knight f6, knight f3, e6, e3, b6. I was apprehending him to play some Queen's Indian kind of setup, delaying d5, and that's what he did. And I had some prep up my sleeves, but I completely forgot it during the game. And this is a pretty standard variation here, and after rook c1, like nothing very concrete is going on. It's just a positional battle, and after rook e1, bishop f8, I played a3, trying to hint at b4 next, trying to put some pressure on the c5 square. After rook c8, I played b4, but it wasn't the best move here in this position because I think maybe e4 was better, trying to hint at d5, numbing of this bishop on b7. But actually after cd4, knight d4, I think that white has some decent counterplay, but yeah, it should be equal. After rook c8, b4, I completely missed this move e5. Actually I saw it after I played b4, but anyways, after e5 I had to drop back my bishop with the bishop b1, and after e4 black is slightly better here, knight g5, and after d5 I was a bit confused what to do. So I mean black is threatening to take this pawn on b4, and after takes bishop takes b4 of course, and my knight is kind of misplaced on g5, and he can just kick it out with h6, but sometimes I can reroute my EP with knight h3 and knight f8 and f4. So anyways, after d5 I took on c5, bc5, and I was for a long time thinking about pushing my pawn to b5, but I refrained from doing that because after h6 I was seeing knight h3, and after d4 takes, and black center is very strong, and I have to kind of take on d4, otherwise something very bad is going to happen with e3. So after bishop d4 I was thinking bishop a3, rook c3, and now maybe bishop b4, and I don't know, rook b3, and now bishop c5, and black has this nice juicy square on c5 which is kind of very annoying for me, and I cannot put up enough pressure on the e4 pawn. So I think black is slightly better here, but hence I decided to play c takes d5, and after bishop takes d5 here as well I was considering a bit b5, but after rook b8 I think a4 and a6, the b5 pawn is kind of falling, because after queen e2 I think something like takes, and now queen b6 is coming, and I think black is clearly a pawn up here, but hence I decided to take on c5, and black played rook c5, which came as a slight surprise for me because I was mostly considering knight takes c5, and I think the position should be equal, or maybe black is the one pushing here, because after knight c4 I don't really see any good plan for white. But after bc5, rook c5, rook c5, he played bishop c5, which again came as a surprise to me. I was only considering knight takes c5, but I don't know what I would have done here. Maybe bishop to d4, trying to put some pressure, I mean pinning the a7 pawn, but I'm not so sure like if I would have been able to play for a win here. But after rook c5 he took there on c5 with his juicer, and after queen 4 he played queen e7. After the game he told that he missed the move queen f4, putting pressure on the e4 pawn, and here actually black is in some trouble kind of. Actually the engine says that black's move is queen b8, But after bishop d4, I think I'm quite comfortable here, exchanging off the strong dark square bishop, because it's always annoying my a3 pawn. But after I was also considering something like queen 8 protecting the e4 pawn, but I think still I would have gone for bishop d4 or something. But anyways, after queen e7, he played I played a very nice tactic, knight takes e4. I'm sorry I showed it already, but you can, if you have missed it, you can try to calculate the variations over there and try to make it work. So I played knight takes e4, and the point is after something like knight e4, if something like knight b6 is coming, the main point is, of course, after bishop e4, queen e4, the d7 knight is hanging, and I'm a pawn up, and I thought during the game that I should be at least clearly better, but actually in the engine says that black has enough counterplay with rook b8, and hitting the b2 bishop and the a3 pawn is quite weak, and I don't know. But rook b8 is already kind of a tough move to see from a distance. But my point was, like, after knight takes e4, I mean bishop takes e4 is the same thing, yeah. Knight takes e4. I was also considering knight b6 for black here, but I thought I was going to play queen b5 here, and after something like takes, I take there, and the point is after queen e4, the c5 juicer is falling. But black has this excellent move a6 here, but after queen c6 there's rook c8, and I think this was a draw by force, because if I move my queen anywhere else after rook c7, then the e4 bishop is falling. But I have to check with the engine actually. Okay, so there's queen f4. I missed it completely during the game, but I thought that it was a draw. But anyways, so even queen b5 is working here, but there was a very nice tactic I saw here, that's knight f6 check, and after g takes f6, I don't know what's happening here really. Queen h4 maybe, but I don't know, like queen e6. I was calculating all this stuff, but I don't know if I could make it work. I was also calculating bishop e4, bishop f6, now bishop b1. The point is, if queen g5 check, bishop g6 is guarding the g7 square, and I mean I have to take there, and after this I think hit this. I mean maybe white is winning, but it's like here black has 3 pieces for the queen and 2 pawns. Okay, so maybe queen g3 check is slightly better, because bishop g6 there's queen c7 and hitting the a7 pawn. But anyways, after I thought maybe if he plays I'm not going to play knight into f6 because I was quite low on time, and it's very hard to calculate all this stuff. And again, after queen h4 there were many options like queen e6, and let's say after bishop f6, and I don't know really what's happening here. Maybe bishop e4 now, and the point is if I play something like queen h6 somewhere, he always has bishop f8. I don't know, let me check if this doesn't really work. Yeah, so after, but he played bishop takes e4 and bishop e4, knight b6, queen c2, because if he takes on e4, I take on c5, and that's what happened here. I was also trying to attack the h7 pawn, but maybe after h6 I could have played something like queen c3 was coming, yeah, and after queen f8, because you don't want to ruin your pawn structure here. If with f6 I can come bishop c2 and bishop b3 check next, or maybe queen d3 trying to enter the black's weakened light squares. But after queen e4, queen c5, knight f4 was played, and after queen d4, knight b2, queen b2, I understood that maybe black has some drawing chances in this position, but I think that I'm going to push this till death, yeah. But after h6, h3, I was like kind of thinking that my opponent is going to play rook e6, but with the idea of rook g6 and trying to play more active chess, hitting the g2 pawn. and luckily enough that's what he did. And but this actually just leaves a second pawn, because after queen b8 check, this and rook g6 is just a circus. It doesn't do anything to white, because I have the simple move g3. And after queen f3, I was kind of considering queen f5 here, but I would have played e4 and queen h3, queen f7 is coming, and then queen f5 is coming next. But he played queen f3 and I played queen c7, protecting the g3 pawn, because he was threatening to take on g3 and give some perpetual stuff. But yeah, after queen c7, queen f3, I played e4 now. Again queen h3, queen f7 is there, and after queen e6, I played king g2, rook f6. And here something very crazy happened. I was almost going to play rook e3, but then I touched my rook and moved it to e3, and then I realized that there's queen a2. Just something simple like maybe e5 is completely winning here, or maybe queen c2 playing itself, because I think after rook e3 there's queen a2, and I am in for some trouble here, because after rook f3 takes, there's the a3 pawn is falling, and I think this is a draw. But and I really do not have a decent option to way to protect the f2 pawn. But luckily I saw queen a2 counterplay, and I played rook e2, and queen b3 was what he played, hitting the a3 pawn and also hinting at queen f3 check. And he's going to threaten both queen into e2 and queen into h4, queen h1 met if I play king f1. So after queen b3, queen c2 I played, and after queen a3, e5, and rook g6 was played. And here I thought I should be winning here after e6, but there was some calculation to be done, because there were some drawing chances, but his pieces are too passive, and the spin is the crucial factor, and his king is weak. The back rank is also pretty weak. After h4, he played king h8. I repeated moves twice here, so that I gained some time out on the clock. Very well-known technique when you're low on time. And after I took on f7, queen f7, and rook e8, and the dummy king is just it's just feeling the heat now. After queen d5 check, anyways, I think something like rook f6 doesn't work, because this and now queen c2 check is coming. And after if rook f5, there's a g4 always. And the funny thing is, after king h5, I have this check, and now king h3, and there's no stopping g4 met on the next move. But he played rook f6, which is the best defense, by the way. And after rook h8 check, king g6, I had already calculated that this endgame should be a win. I didn't calculate the pawn endgame, of course, it's impossible kind of, but pawn endgame with the pawn up should be a win. But after king f6, I exchanged everything on the f7 square, and I stopped his g7 pawn, a very well-known technique that you just stop opponent's pawn moves. But my pawns are mobile now, and it will prove decisive later on. I played f4, protecting the g5 square, king f5, king h3, and just a bit of maneuvering here and there. And even king e6, king c5, and I'm just going to enter black's territory. And king c6 is kind of the natural move. I don't know why engine is saying that it's a mistake. The engine is seeing a mate in 26 moves, which is like nothing. And after g5, he played king d6, and here I was in for a shock. Like, I had a cold shower here. I thought that maybe there's a draw, but luckily there is not, because after g6, this if he played king f5, then this king g5, and his pawn on g7 is falling, and I'm just too fast, because the h6 pawn is far away. But after g6, king e6, king c5, and a bit of opposition stuff. And after this, king g8, mind you, not king f7, because that's a stalemate. There is this very important move f6, which wins the game on spot. And here is the position where my opponent resigned in this game, because after g takes f6, of course I do not take here, because after this I do not have literally any way to progress, because after g7 there's king h7, and after king f5, king f7, that's stalemate. But I can just play king f7, and then after f5 this is a met. And if king g8, there's f7 check, and f8 queen or rook is a met. But actually, if black is white to move, and white did not have this move, king e8 or king e6, then I mean king e8 mostly, because king e6 black can escape on the f8 square. But let's say if black didn't have to move, then it would have been a draw, because after f7 that's like something like this f7 is a stalemate. But luckily black has to move, and that's how chess works. And yeah, so he resigned in this position. He was like a 2150 rated player, a pretty decent one. And yeah, I didn't play my best chess, but I managed to get the point. And I like in the first game I drew against a 2000 rated player, and the second game I won a pretty good game. But yeah, and now I am currently at 2.5 out of 3, trailing the leader by half points. And yeah, still 7 more rounds to go. Anything can happen here. And yeah, that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow.